What's going on, everyone? So let's dive into Zach Edey here. I know he is a fan favorite amongst many. A lot of people really want to see the Lakers draft him with the 17th pick. So let's get into the pros and cons of Zach Edey. Now, just to kind of let you know who he is a mountain of a man. He is a guy that is definitely a big body. 7'4". He's got a 7'10" wingspan. This is a guy that is coming off his senior season with Purdue. He averaged 25, almost 26 points per game. He averaged 12, almost 13 rebounds per game, 2.2 blocks, couple assists, right? To me, he kind of is in the mold of like a bigger, kind of Ivaka Zubac type player is what I think of when I see him. And kind of the way he plays, a little slow, right, at times, but just this big, burly bruiser of a guy. Right? He's a little older, which kind of fits what the Lakers like, you know, in those later picks, right? Lakers like the 22-year-olds, kind of the more adult, more mature type players that can come in and make an immediate impact. Zach Edey is actually one of the guys that I think could make an immediate impact. Now, a lot of people, I think, kind of blow Zach Edey. The expectations are like insane for him, right? Like I see people like, you need him to stop Jokic. Like he's the Jokic stopper. Like I don't necessarily see that. I do think, yes, he is a big body with long arms and is not going to get moved and bullied like, you know, say a Jackson Hayes would against Jokic. But he's a rookie coming in that is not very quick-footed, that Jokic is one of the most talented big men arguably ever, right? And I'm not too sure if he's like the fix-all, cure-all for Jokic, but I do think he's a guy that matches up well, and matches up well against many big men in this league. And he has a size advantage against a lot of big men in this league. I think he's a guy that provides rim protection. I think he's a guy that can go get you buckets around the rim. He's got such long arms. I mean, you could just lob it up and he's just going to go get it and dunk it home. He's really good about not bringing the ball back down. Right? You watched a lot of like Purdue games, or if you watch a lot of Purdue games, right? There's a lot of times, even rebounds, he would get the rebound and just go right back up, kind of like the Kevin McHale thing, where like, you know, you're not bringing the ball back down. A lot of big men you'll see, they'll get the rebound and bring the ball back down. He just, because he knows, like, he's longer and bigger than everybody, he just goes right back up. Something I really like. He is a guy that can, again, block shots. He's not somebody that you'd want kind of matching up in the pick and roll. He's not somebody that I think would be a great, like, just on an island defender. But I do think he's a guy that if you can funnel into him, right, I do believe that he's a guy that can clean it up. I also think he's a guy that, you know, as a help defender, you know, coming off, I think can really clean things up for you. Obviously, he'd help with the rebounding tremendously. Him slotted alongside Anthony Davis. Now you have Anthony Davis is kind of his slotted 4 and the help defender. Here's the thing, though. Zach Edey very likely doesn't start because of LeBron James at the 4, but the future potential, right, is like, man, you'd have Zach Edey slotted at the 5, you'd have Anthony Davis slotted at the 4. That's a lot of size, a lot of versatility, right? Zach Edey is also a guy that can make a play out of the post, which is good, and I do believe can continue to improve and evolve in that regard, especially once, you know, teams kind of scheme their defense, especially if he's in a position where he's dominating, he can kick it back out. Even if he has Anthony Davis alongside of him, again, he has that other guy that you could just lob it up to or kick it out to like that little elbow, 15-footer or whatever. Right? I do think that there is a ton of positives with Zach Edey, and I do think he's a guy that can make an immediate impact too. Right? Where you look at some of the other guys, like I've seen people throw out like Ware and stuff. Right? Yes, could they make immediate impact? Of course, you never know, but there is kind of questions of like, okay, where does he fit? How does he fit? And we'll touch on him more in an independent video, but kind of just the idea of like, you know, a lot of these other guys, especially some of the younger guys, right? Are they able to immediately jump in? Like everyone wants a Derek Lively, right? Everyone wants where he comes in and he's just lighting it up, but it doesn't always work out that way. Where I do think of Zach Edey with his skill set, he's very refined in that regards. Obviously, there's always room for improvement. And though he is older, he's not like 24, 25. He's 22, right? So he's a guy that does have some potential and can continue to grow and develop. But there are some concerns. There are some cons with Zach Edey. First off is, again, just him being kind of a slower-bodied big man, right? what is going to happen very likely is teams are going to target him. I mean, even Rudy Gobert, you see Dallas just putting him through the spin cycle. He doesn't really stretch the floor, right? So when he's on the court, you can't really bring him out. Can he knock down can he shoot outside on the perimeter? Yes. But he is best as like that low post big man that's just getting buckets around the rim. He's not a Lauri Markkanen or like a Karl Anthony Towns or something like that, right? He's closer to like a traditional big man than he is anything else. But that doesn't mean he can't develop that as time progresses. It doesn't mean he can't develop. Look at even like Brook Lopez was one of the best low post players in the league. I mean, the guy was, 20 and 10 automatic, just all around. It was basically an automatic bucket if he got it within, 6 feet or whatever. Right, but he developed that skill of being able to stretch the floor. Now he's one of the best stretch big men in the league. So can Zach Edey, with his work ethic, be able to do the same? Can he do that in a similar regard to where he is able to stretch the floor a little bit, be a reliable shooter? Again, not saying he has to be lights out, not saying he has to be a big, 40% three-point shooter, but enough to be respectable to where, you can kind of open the floor, open the lanes a little bit. On the defensive side, discipline is a big question, right? Can he stay disciplined? There's a lot of times where he'd get himself into foul trouble because of lack of discipline. You got to imagine is only going to be amplified playing in the NBA, and people are targeting him, people are going after him, right? He needs to be able to stay disciplined. Also, again, the defense on the island, because of his lack of mobility, and he doesn't have this like insane lateral quickness, right? He does cover so much space, which is good, right? He is he's just this mountain of a man. So again, you got to kind of get around him, and he does have such a long wingspan that I do think he will be able to recover in a lot of ways. I do think he will be just a deterrent, right? I'm not comparing him to Wemby, so I just want to make that clear. But you see, like with Wemby, just his length and his size is an automatic deterrent, right? Even when he's not really engaged, he just turns his head, and players are backing out and going, okay, like let me rethink this real quick. I could see a similarity in that regard. Obviously, again, he doesn't cover as much ground as Wemby. He's not as athletic and skillful and quick-footed as Wemby. I mean, Wemby's, again, he's an alien for a reason. But I do think that Zach Edey's size will be a big deterrent on many nights, on many occasions. And then especially if you have Anthony Davis slotted alongside him, it kind of now you have to be not only weary of like Zach Edey, but you have to be weary of like, oh, Anthony Davis could be right behind me, and now I'm going up against 2 7-footers, or Anthony Davis just shy. But you get my point, right? And it's just like, okay. I also think the skill set between Edey and AD could be a very nice tandem. I think a very nice pairing. But the question is, can Zach Edey translate to a starting NBA level? I think as like a backup big man that's getting 15 to 20 minutes a game, perfect. Right? I don't really have any questions in that regard. But as far as like, hey, this is the guy we're drafting to be our center of the future, that's where the concerns lie. We've seen a lot of just very skillful big men kind of fade out with his style because they can't really stretch the floor, right? They are kind of slow-footed. Right? There's a lot of, like, as big and skillful as Zach Edey is, yes, some of these guys weren't as big and skillful as Zach Edey, but it's just the idea of, like, the NBA is moving to the big man that can stretch out, right? Or is at least athletic enough to be a lob threat and kind of space out and then recover and have the foot speed to get back. Where Zach Edey, much like, the Clippers with Zoo, he's just kind of this big body that's down in the paint all the time. Right? And it kind of makes you have to scheme differently. Does he become a liability, especially come, say, the playoffs, right? To where teams go, okay, if we can get him out and on an island, or we could get the floor spacing, like say you're playing Minnesota and he has to match up against a Karl Anthony. Obviously, if he has to match up against a Rudy Gobert, you're good. But if he has to match up, if they take out Rudy and he's out there and he's got to match up against a Karl Anthony Towns or a Nas Reed or something like that, to where he has to where he has to come out of the paint, and then they switch or whatever, and now you got this like, oh, what do I do? And he's not quick enough to get back. there are some concerns and questions in that regard. Thing is, if he was available in the second round, like if the Lakers, not the 55th pick, because I highly doubt that, but like let's say the Lakers could take the 55th pick or just go get another second pick and like move up, right? If you could get him in the second round, I think that's a no-brainer. At 17, personally, and I know a lot of you may disagree, but personally, I would rather look at some more athletic, versatile options, again, like Aware. I just think that the upside, the potential, and the likelihood of him being a true starting level could be higher. Again, I'm not saying Zach Edey can't be, right? He has the tools. He has the skills. It's just, will it translate to an NBA level? We've seen a lot of excellent centers throughout the history of college get into the NBA and eventually fall to the wayside. Right? So just because he's a guy, and again, he's 22 years old, he's not 19 where it's like, oh man, maybe we can, mold him a little differently, right? Like, so again, I do have my question marks in regards to him, but I do think he's a guy that can definitely have an immediate impact, which would go a long way. Also, I just don't think the Lakers are going to have the 17th pick. Right? And it's also possible Zach Edey just gets drafted earlier than that. I've seen a lot of mock drafts having him slotted at like 19 and Lakers taking like various other players. But if he's there at 17 and if the Lakers draft him at 17, like I'll be pumped, right? Because again, he's a very good player and he is somebody that I think could have an impact now and for the future. It's just, will he ever be able to be that future center, like that starting center, or is he always going to be that backup? Which again, isn't terrible, right? If he's a backup that's giving you, whatever, 12-8 or 15-10 or something like that, like what more could you ask for? And on any given night, like you still need those guys, right? You still need that quality role player that can step in on any given night or, play the role on any given night. But we'll see how he progresses. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you like the idea of Zach Edey? Do you think no? Go with somebody else? Let me know your options down in the comments. Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.